good evening, and it's my honor and my privilege to welcome Mr. Pradeep Kashyap, who is known as the father of rural marketing in India. I had the privilege of working with him back in 1976, and
Or
even
50 years
then,
back.
so many years back, isn't it? And I have been keeping in touch with him. I've been following all that he's been doing, and I can truly say that he's a person with the courage to follow his heart and fulfill his purpose in life. Right. So, very warm welcome to you, Pradeep.
Thank you very much.
Feel odd calling you Pradeep, but I guess I will.
That's okay.
So now, I believe, Pradeep, that our formative years, the growing up years are very significant because I think it lays the foundation for what we become. So would you like to share a little bit about your early years?
Okay, I was born into an upper middle class family of Delhi. And, throughout my school days, I was a shy, withdrawn, self-effacing boy. And I didn't get an opportunity to get onto the school stage even once because I was no good in academics or in sports or in debate or drama or any of those things. And so my school life was a bit of a write-off, and no, I could never have expected that I would start my journey from there, and toward the end of my life would be quite different. And the same sad story, I'll say, repeated itself at BITS Pilani, where I did my engineering. I never got onto the BIT stage, but I did get onto the BIT stage 50 years later, when I was honored with the Distinguished Alumnus Award. So that was the first and only time in my life that I got onto a stage till that time. Later on, there have been many opportunities to get on the stage. So school life, college life, by way of any achievement or any potential, none. Nobody, including myself or even God, maybe God, could have predicted that one would, achieve some small success. So that's the story till then. And then my corporate life.
Just one moment.
Sorry?
I think we learn more from our mistakes than our achievements. Right?
Yeah.
So whatever happened to you in your childhood, I mean, I remember myself being an absolutely shy person. I never used to speak to anyone. Okay. But I was an observer. I was listening. I was watching. I'm sure you must have done that too. Because quiet people, they observe more, they learn more. So do you remember anything of significance that has impacted you in your life journey from those days?
Well, one was that I was, when I finished my school and I joined college, and we were having a Students' Alumnus Day back in school. And we got invitations, and there were a couple of colleagues with me who were from school at BITS. And they said, "Aren't you coming for this event?" I said, I'm not, because it doesn't make a damn difference to anyone. If I go back, nobody would recognize me. So that was one. But that, set me thinking that, am I going to live the rest of my life this way?
Unrecognized.
Yeah, unrecognized. I'll be an unsung hero. I'll die an unsung hero. I mean, not even a hero, an unsung ordinary guy. And that, I think, was the first transformation which started to work. And the other one was, I like you, I observed that my sense of observation was very acute. I could remember details, I could remember conversations. And I started getting impacted by these because earlier I was a rudderless character who didn't know which way he was headed. So these were the two sort of things that stand out. And of course, in college, one used to feel very sad when one of your friends got onto the stage and you were still continuing to sit on the chair in the auditorium. So yeah, so it's been a very, very different journey later in life.
Yeah, and you had a very successful stint in some very large MNC companies, including the one where we worked together.
Yeah,
So
so
what made you, give it up? I mean, did you get disillusioned or something like that?
yeah, you see, there were two things. One was I realized, which my spiritual guru actually helped me to realize it, but I'll come to that in a while, that whatever one, uh, just 1 minute, there's a little disturbance. Okay, Raju. Yeah,
I might
so
edit
I'm
that
sorry.
out.
Yeah,
I'll
so
edit that out.
yeah, so what I realized was that I first joined Exide, worked there for 6 or 7 years. And then in my interview at MICO, Mr. Ramaswamy, who was then the sales head, he said, we are going to introduce selling batteries under the MICO brand. So you'd be the right person because you already know all about batteries. So that's how I got this offer. And from there, the next job, which was Denso, head of marketing, they picked me up immediately. And because they said, oh God, you've already spent 13 years in the auto sector. So the first thing I learned was that you don't learn anything very much new because you get the job because you already know it, right? And the second thing was that I was absolutely disillusioned with the selfish culture of corporates and the insensitivity of corporates. They could go through life like zombies, so long as they kept getting their perks and benefits from time to time. And I said, I've already wasted 20 years of my life doing nothing, but I can't afford to waste the next 20, 30 years. And that's what started to bring about a seriousness. And the quest for one's purpose started from there. That what the hell am I doing?
Okay.
So from there, the journey takes that when I resigned from MICO, I took a 2-year break.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Before I got on to Tenso, because around that time I'd met my spiritual guru. And he's a very interesting person. He was God realized, but more importantly, he was an Englishman who came to India during the Second World War and an aeronautical engineer.
Oh.
So the minute I met him, I could relate to him because we would speak the same language, the engineering language. He was strong in logic. I was very strong in logic. So there were a lot of points of connection. So during the Second World War, he was sent to India by his company to repair Spitfire engines and in Dum Dum in Calcutta. And after the war ended, he decided to take a trip into India because he had heard so much about the country. And he happened to visit the south, and where we went to Tiruvannamalai and met the great sage Raman Maharishi. And he had an experience while sitting with him in the room. And that kind of transformed him way back in the 1940s. It transformed him, and he realized that the inner quest is much more important than the outer quest. So when I met him and I started asking him, what is my purpose in life? Because I'm feeling absolutely disillusioned and directionless. So he said, the first thing, Pradeep, is that it takes a lifetime to find out your purpose, and you're trying to do everything in an instantaneous manner, that you want to know your purpose tonight. And that's not going to happen. But because you're insisting, and I was really insisting with him. So he said, because you're insisting, I will tell you that there is a temporary purpose that I can suggest to you, which is to help improve the quality of life of the poor. Because in serving the poor, you come closer to God. Okay? because your own ego takes a backseat because you're serving the poor. And what are you going to impress them with? Because what they need is 2 square meals. And if you can help them get that, nothing like it. So that's why from there on, I took on my gospel truth as my guru's words, that whatever you do, if it doesn't help the poor, then my suggestion is don't do it. Okay. So for 2 years, I sat and I meditated and I read. I think, maybe about 50, 60, 70 spiritual books during those 2 years and tried to imbibe this thing. And in the meanwhile, I continued my dialogue with my guru and asking him questions, getting clarification. He would suggest what kind of books to read. And I could see a slow process of transformation started to begin. And later one realized that it had actually happened to quite an extent. It had, to some extent, let's say.
Mm-hmm. Is that what led you to do what you did that made you get recognized as the father of rural marketing in India?
Yeah, so, when I discussed with my guru and he said this is a temporary purpose. So I said, now I must take my guru's word seriously. And the only way I can do it is by leaving the corporate sector. So the year I turned 40, with the blessings of my guru, I voluntarily opted out of the corporate sector. It was a difficult initial 2-3 years after this, because from many people knowing me in the corporate sector, when I came into the social sector or this sector, nobody knew me, not a single person. Okay. And I remember I joined an NGO, a large NGO in Delhi. And later on, I was appointed as the marketing advisor to the Ministry of Rural Development. But at this NGO, a young IIT graduate became a good friend. And he said to me, he says, Pradeep, I've noticed that in NGO meetings and the staff meetings, you don't contribute anything. And you've got 18 years corporate experience behind you. So I said, the thing is that I know about corporate life, but I don't know about smokeless chulas or about handlooms or handicrafts and these sort of things that you do. So I would rather keep quiet and learn. So for one whole year, I almost took a Maun breath, almost. When I'd go to work, I wouldn't open my mouth, I would only listen. And somewhere I read the Dalai Lama's words, where he said that when you talk, you don't learn anything new. When you listen, there are chances that you can learn something new. So it's better to listen than to talk. And that 1 year proved to be my most enriched year, because I got into the fast track of learning. Whoever I would meet, I would ask him questions and just listen to his knowledge. So one acquired kind of, distilled knowledge very quickly. And now, for the last 30 years, I've been telling my team members that whenever you meet somebody, assume that you have a pipe running from your tank into that person's tank. A pipe. Okay. Yeah. So if you connect that pipe, knowledge will flow automatically following the rules of gravity from that learned man's head into your head without any effort. Okay. I said, instead of spending time talking about politics or Bollywood or those kind of things, I said, even on a train, whoever is sitting next to you on a flight, whoever is on the next seat, just ask him, what do they do? And I said, nobody in the world will refuse to talk, because that's the opportunity for them to have their ego boost opportunity. That, oh, you want to know about me? I'm a lawyer, I'm a writer, I'm a poet, I'm XYZ. So that was the richest 1 year of my life, where I really learned a lot.
So my question still remains: how did you get to be known as the father of rural rural marketing?
Okay. See, when I got appointed as the marketing advisor to the Ministry of Rural Development, their work is all in the rural areas.
Right.
Yeah. So I got the opportunity to travel the length and breadth of this country, and I observed abject poverty. And coming from a upper middle class family, I'd never seen this kind of poverty. I was born and grew up in Delhi, never lived outside. So that moved me, and that got me started on to MART, which is the next story I'll tell in a minute.
But in the meantime, you taught in this Anand, isn't it? And you wrote a book also.
Yeah, so I will come to that. I taught social marketing at IRMA, not rural marketing. Okay. Oh. But when I got appointed as the advisor to the Ministry of Rural Development, I realized that this is going to become a big market because the government has set up 7 million women's self-help groups, microfinance groups, to take them into micro-enterprise. So if some of those micro-enterprises are successful, there'll be lakhs and lakhs of women with surplus money, which they'll spend on consumption. Okay? So that was the first thing. The second was that during that period, the total production of milk in India became the number one in the world. Mm-hmm. And milk is a women's activity. Okay? The daily household expenses are met from the sale of milk. So you're a woman in a village, you have a buffalo, and you take out 4 kilos of milk, you get 40 rupees a kilo. So you earn 160 rupees, and that's enough to buy the daily provisions for the family. So I got a kind of a telescopic view of what is likely to come, what is likely to happen in the rural markets, not only in rural development, which was the government's objective. Then came the Mahatma Gandhi Rural Employment Scheme, the Narega or Manrega, as you call it, right? That pumped in something like 30,000, 40,000, 50,000 crores into the rural economy. So the rural people started getting money. So I went and talked to the chairman of Unilever and many other companies. And the standard response I got from some of them was, गरीब लोगों के पास पैसा नहीं है खाने को और आप बात कर रहे हैं हमारे ब्रांड और हमारे प्रोडक्ट खरीदेंगे. So I said, I can foresee this. I cannot convince you because I don't have any data and there's no data available. But that's what I see. And I got frustrated talking to many of these CEOs. From there, I moved to the academic institute, the MBA institutes. And I said, why don't you introduce a course on rural marketing? So they said, but there's no demand for it. So I said, where will the demand come from? They said, from corporates. So I said, I'm back to the corporates and they're not convinced. And I said, my story seems true, but I don't know how to convince them. So, and then they also added and said that, where is the textbook on rural marketing? And Philip Kotler can write a book on marketing, but he can't write a book on India's rural markets. So I said, that's quite a thing. What do we do? So out of frustration, I said to myself, damn it, I'm going to write that book. And, during the day, I used to run my consultancy. And by that time, we had about 20 people in MART. And in the evenings and night, I used to sit down. And that time, there was no data, no case studies, nothing on rural markets. It was a completely clean slate. So it used to be frustrating what to write because there were no cases. So we started writing about MART cases because by that time, it was about 10, 15 years after starting MART. So we had a fair bunch of cases. So we used many of them. And slowly, the book took shape. I don't know, at least 100 times I must have hit myself on the head that why the hell did I get into all this thing? But then I realized that because I'd made a commitment, I was somehow honoring it, which was not my nature. And that's the day I realized that my guru had continued to work on me even while I was not physically in touch with him. He was still alive, but I got busy running around rural markets and rural this thing. But it was he who was creating that commitment within me. And the book came out in 2005, and it was amongst the top 10 books of that year. There was, I mean, that was the first and only book in the market. And by now it sold some 50,000 copies. So that was the background. And around the same time, C.K. Prahlad, around 2005, he came out with his very famous book, Fortune at the Bottom of the Pyramid, which has sold millions of copies across the globe. But his concept of rural markets was corporates should go there and extract money from the poor by selling them brands and expensive things. Whereas my approach to marketing, because I had worked in the rural areas and I had been the chairman of the Khadi Commission Marketing, I was associated with Amul. So I realized that we have to talk about inclusive marketing. That means not only marketing from corporate India or urban India into rural India, but marketing from rural India into urban India. That is the Khadi model. So you produce Khadi in rural villages and then you sell it through your showrooms. Or Amul, all factories are in rural areas, but the consumers are all over the world in some 60 countries where they export. So this brought about a radical thinking, and people were shocked that I was standing against C.K. Prahlad. I said, this is not my definition of rural marketing. My definition is it should be inclusive marketing. So to look at producers, not only consumers, but as producers of goods and services in rural India for sale in urban markets and other markets. So that's how one got to be known as the father of rural marketing. And it was during that period that the rural markets exploded, exactly as per my predictions. So then, Godrej, Hero Honda, Senior Munjal, he invited me to address his board. I don't know how many places I went and addressed boards or senior management committees, because they said this chap has foresight. He's understood the rural market, which I had, because I had privy to what the government was thinking. And I was putting the pieces together. C.K. Prahlad and others, they didn't put the pieces together. They only picked up the attractive pieces, the wealth at the bottom of the pyramid. But there are many pieces which create that story. And I was willing to bide my time as the story unfolded, because I couldn't unfold it. It had to unfold over a period of time. And that's the way it happened.
All right, good. So you mentioned the word MART many times. Yeah. I know about it. But would you explain to people what MART is? What does MART stand for? What does it?
Okay, so as I told you that when I left the corporate sector, for 4-5 years, I worked as the marketing advisor to the ministry and with this large NGO. And then I realized that I had to do something more significant, because there are millions who are below the poverty line. And by helping, 50, 100 people through grants from some agency is not going to work. We have to talk about creating lakhs and lakhs of livelihoods in rural India. So I decided that now it's time for me to set up an organization, because individually I could have done what I did, but now this is what is required. And since I come from the corporate background, I was clear that this organization is not going to work on the selfish philosophy of what's in it for me, which is the corporate thing. All of us were always looking for what next work I'm getting. I mean, what sales I'm getting is secondary, but what benefits I'm going to get from the company. So that was the first thing. And I said, instead, my organization is going to work towards creating lakhs of livelihoods, for which we will create an organization where instead of selfish this thing, we'll talk about giving, self-giving. Okay? Lifelong belonging and self-giving of this new organization. So on those principles, we started MART as a organization based on family values. Okay? And I'm going to talk about this in some detail because it's a very powerful model.
Yeah, that's why I wanted you to speak.
Yeah. So we decided to start it as a organization of family values. Now, what are these family values? The first value is that there is no one what do you call no one designation. Okay. So I'm a son, I'm a brother, I'm a husband, I'm a father. So I play many roles. And during the day itself, those roles keep changing. When I'm talking to my wife, I'm the husband. When I talk to my son, I'm the father, and so on and so forth. Now, so therefore, what we said was that we are not going to have any designations because then people have the opportunity to cross boundaries or borders from their own department into the next department. So learning from each other. So we have people, one day they are working on project X, next day they're working on project Y. One is on consumer goods, the other is on milk production. So totally unrelated. Our teams have got the fastest knowledge growth rate that I can think of from all the people that I've met. Because every day is a new day, every day is a new challenge, because you have to start reading the background. How did we become the number one milk producer? What is this Amul model on which this Operation Flood is based? What is Operation Flood? None of us knew all this. Or the reverse way around. How do you sell shampoo? Why is the sachet more popular than the big pack, and so on and so forth. So that was the first thing. The second was lifelong belonging. Now, we live that lifelong belonging by saying that no one leaves his family. Okay? So we are a family. Okay? So, or maybe I just jumped this thing. Let me just complete the first part, which is the family values. I just made some notes because sometimes you tend to drift and don't want to waste people's time. So just this lifelong belonging. So what we have as a system in MART is that when people complete 10 years of service, and if they meet certain other criteria, then they automatically become partners, co-owners of the organization, and the organization gifts them 2.5% of the total value of the organization as their shares. Okay? So like that, we started with a proprietorship firm, just me. Now we have 5 partners. Okay? In between, we had 9 partners, but some people left. So this keeps the interest alive. Yeah? Because I'm going to become a co-owner. Now, all our 5 partners have been with us for between 10, 20, and even 20 plus years. Okay? So they started straight out of college, and today they are the owners. And when I retired from MART, I gifted all my shares back to these 5. So I have no stake in MART. I have no legal say, right? And all that additional shares have gone to these 5 people. So they are very thrilled because they're now, each of them has become a 20% owner. Okay? So that's how we ensure lifelong this thing. Then transparency. In most organizations, there is a lot of gossip going on all the time. And I've always been, even during my corporate days, I used to hate any gossip. So we have a system that all our work is transparent to the extent that I can go to the accounts department and ask them what Deepak Marwai's salary is. Now, that helps us because we have to be very fair. I cannot play favorites because if I play favorites, you will immediately come to me, sir, how did you give this guy a 10,000 rupee increment and me only 2,000, right? So that's there. Then caring. I think that's a very critical thing in the family. If you're sick, your parents will come and look after you, or vice versa, and whatever. Okay? Just to give you an example, there's this boy, Rajiv, who joined us 1 year soon after college, and he had been with us for just 1 year when his father came visiting from Patna. Okay? And he was staying with him in his room. And in the evening, the father complained of chest pain. So the boy took him to a nearby hospital, and they did some angiography and all. They said his two arteries are completely blocked. So he needs stenting immediately because it's a serious matter. I was away to Bangladesh that time. So he came back feeling very distraught, and he talked to a senior, and he said, "So this is my problem." So the senior said, "Don't worry. You tell the hospital to plan the surgery, and we will raise the funds." These 20 people contributed, somebody 10,000, somebody 5,000. And by the evening, the 2 lakhs for the surgery had been collected. Rajiv took that money, deposited it in the hospital. The surgery was done successfully. The father went back home to Patna, and from there he remitted the money, because those days there was no Paytm and all that. And everybody got back their money. And when I returned from Bangladesh, Rajiv came into my room, and he was very emotionally charged. And he said to me, he says, "Sir, how can I ever leave my MART family?" And he went on to work with us for 10 years. And he left only because his wife wanted to go back to Patna. So no grouse against the organization, but family circumstances. Okay? So that's how you bring in genuine caring. Then you don't have to shout from the rooftops that we are a family value company, because you're living it. Right?
What does this acronym MART stand for?
We started off as marketing and research team, MART, marketing and research team. But as we went along, like, ORG was actually Operations Research Group, but they are better known as ORG in many companies. I mean, ITC, or so many of them. Another significant one, and quite a hilarious one, is the CEO at MART in the family is the head of the family. Mm-hmm. And the head of the family's role is much larger than the role of the CEO of a company, because the CEO will take care of your legal needs, what you're entitled to within the company. He can sanction those. But here, most of our staff or employees have joined soon after college. Mm-hmm. Okay? And almost all of them were bachelors. And almost all of them got married while working at MART. Okay? And many of them had kids working at MART, because many of them have worked for 10, 20 years with us. Okay? Which in itself is a rarity in today's world. So, yeah. So in one case, the father-in-law to be walked into our office and asked for me. I don't know who he is. And he came and sat down, and he says, ये मुझे बताइए आप लोग करते क्या हैं? He says, you're not a government servant organization. You're not a private sector company. You're not a bank. तो आपके जो employees हैं क्या करते हैं? I said, they're into consulting business. Consulting क्या होता है? मतलब कोई राय देने के लिए आपको पैसा देगा? बेवकूफ है. So I said, that's up to them to decide, but we've been surviving all these years. So only after checking the boy's prospects would the father-in-law go and meet this boy's father. Right? So that's a role I played several times, not once. And then this very boy, who was getting rejected again and again, he decided to leave MART because he was not finding himself a bride. So it was a very sad day for us, because he was a very bright chap. But he left us. Within a year, he found himself he left us, joined an American NGO, well-paying, well-recognized, got himself a wonderful bride, and rejoined MART. And he's now been with MART for more than 20 years, and he's one of the partners.
Wow. How does it get any better than that?
Yeah, so then we don't have any job descriptions. Once the 3M company, global HR person, he was traveling in different countries to understand HR practices, especially in Asian countries. So we had done some work with them. So they rang me up and they said, "Can we bring this gentleman to you?" So I said, "Sure, but what do you want to show them?" They said, "The way you have organized your company." So this gentleman came, and that was around Diwali time, just before Diwali. So we were all on top of tables and cleaning the fans above and cleaning, the lights. So this HR global head came, and he walked in. He just looked around, and then came to my room, and he says, "I have no questions to ask. You're living your philosophy." So I said, "Look, if I come to your house, won't you serve me a glass of water? But why is it that in the office you would hesitate?" So I did one thing. For the first 10 years of my working life at MART, I wore only a kurta pajama.
Oh, really? Oh.
For 10 years, whether I went to a World Bank meeting or anywhere, I was only in a kurta pajama because I wanted to blast this suited, booted image of a CEO. Because I said, if you're working in the rural areas, you better mingle with them and do as the Romans do. If they wear simple clothes, you wear. Don't go with a tie and all. Nobody's going to talk to you. Yeah? So I think you have to live your philosophy. Big companies talk about all the things that I've told you. Big companies have written rules that you must care for your employees, you must do this. But damn it, who does it? So there's a lot of gap between doing and thinking, or,
And if you listen to your heart, you will naturally do it.
Yeah, this is the whole thing. So in the initial years, I used to make the tea in the office. I used to serve it, and I used to wash the dishes. And some new guys who joined by that time, I'd got a reputation that he's the father of rural marketing. They would say, "Sir, आप क्या कर रहे हैं ये?" I said, "क्यों अगर मैं तुम्हारे घर आऊंगा और तुम्हारी वाइफ घर में नहीं है तो तुम मेरे को चाय नहीं पिलाओगे? तो आज ऑफिस बॉय नहीं आया तो मैं चाय बना रहा हूँ, इसमें क्या बड़ी बात है?" So these are norms that break from normal thinking. That in a corporate you behave this way, at home you behave differently. So in the office you wear a suit, at home you wear a dhoti.
So one last question I want to ask you.
Yeah.
Now you say that you're retired. I can't believe that you can ever retire. So how do you?
I am now writing a book on my life journey.
Can't wait to read it.
Yeah, and that's taking a lot of time and the mickey out of me. Because one is trying to remember details, what happened 30, 40 years back. But it's quite an experience. My English is good, but it's not a writer's English. So I started writing first as an autobiography. And within 2 days, I said to myself, "Boy, you're getting onto the ego trip again. So just stay away from it." Because when you write an autobiography, you end up glorifying yourself. Okay, I did this, I achieved that, I did that. So I disbanded that, and I got a professional writer. And when she asks questions, if I try and bring in my ego into it, she'll tell me, "But prove it to me that you've done this, show me." See, you can't sort of pull fast ones. Whereas in an autobiography, you can write what you want. So I've been very particular about keeping everybody's ego under check, including mine, starting with mine. In fact, for me, I never needed to worry because my wife would always puncture my ego. To the extent that, when I got the Lifetime Achievement Award, which is a very prestigious thing for a lifetime, and I brought it home. So I told her, I said, this is award. She says, "वहाँ रख दो, 50 पहले पढ़े हैं, एक और हो जाएगा." So there was no fuss about it. And not till today, it's been 20 years. कि हो गया तो हो गया.
All right. So
So,
one last favor I'll ask you to do is that
yeah,
what do you say to the professional managers of today,
what I
especially
would say,
youngsters, you know?
what I would say to the professional managers of today, that one is be true to yourself. Be true to yourself and feel compassion. See, professional managers only work from their mind,
Yeah, the ego.
but you need to work from, if you have a mind, you also have a heart. And in fact, the heart is more important in the body, right? So the way MART has been structured is a business mind, social heart organization. That's our punchline. Business mind, social heart. So how does it work? So if you take a 2x2 matrix, so on the horizontal axis, you put heart. So social heart, business heart. On the vertical axis, you put social mind, business mind. So social mind, social heart is the compassionate NGO. So we're not an NGO. Okay. Diametrically opposite is the corporate sector, who says business heart, business mind. Business mind for getting the best people to develop the best strategy. But business heart keeps you away from compassion. Because unless I understand the consumer, his life, his hardships, his need or her need, I'm not going to be successful. I can keep copying products from the West, but unless I feel that, I'm not going to be successful. So this business mind, social heart is really caught the imagination of the world. Many people have got back to us saying that this is a wonderful approach which will work.
Fantastic. So thank you very much, Pradeep, for taking this time out. And I wish you all the best with your book. And we just can't wait to read it.
Yeah,
I mean, I wish we could talk for, long. Maybe we'll have another interview with you,
yeah, whenever.
take off from where we left, right?
Yeah,
Thank
sure,
you. Thank
whenever.
you.
Because there are a lot of lessons to be learned in the journey.
Yeah, and we'd definitely like to learn more about it. So thank you very
Thank
much
you.
for your time. And let's
Thank you. Thank you for having me on your show. And how will this be now sort of transmitted to your networks and other networks?
It gets on. This is going to go on my YouTube channel.
Oh, you're on your YouTube channel.
Yeah.
I've never visited your YouTube channel. Now I get the opportunity to visit it.
I'll send you a link. You can watch.
Send me a link. Please send me a link. Yeah.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And give us all your blessings so that we continue.
Thank
to
you.
do what we are doing. Thank you so much.
Yeah. No, you will continue to do what you're doing because you're blessed.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Okay.
Goodbye.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Bye.